Hi there. I'm going to try to keep this as quick as possible, and I talk a little bit fast. So, if you have any questions along the way, please write them down and ask me later. Ask me, send them to me by email or text me or call me on the phone. I don't even care. I would totally clarify anything, but I know that nobody likes to listen to long videos. So, I'm going to try to give you a bunch of information quickly. So, this video is going to give you some tips and tricks about searching. And I'm going to walk you through the assignment that is in week 3. So this video will be in the week 3 module. It says in the week 3 overview that this is where this video will be linked, okay? And it's directly addressing the international audiences assignment. However, some of the tips here pertain to what you're doing in the week 2 assignment, the APA source reference assignment. You're just finding one article in week 2, but some of these tips might help you out. It's also this week 3 assignment is more restrictive and has more specific directions. So that's why I'm going to put this here. But you can use the same kind of an idea for week 2. Watch and see. You'll know what I mean. When you click on this, we'll see here that for this particular assignment, I want you to read these sections of the handbook that have to do with international communication. And the specific communication issues we have culturally or with our slang and jargon or idioms that, and even just the tone that come into our business correspondence. Why do we need to look at these situations and address them different ways when we're talking to an international audience, right? Some things that we can write or the ways that we can express ourselves to an American recipient or audience, they're going to vary when it comes to international audiences. And that is what these sections are about. So I want you to read through them. They're very brief and they just kind of give some best practices and some tips and tricks. And I want you to think about some of the things that they talk about here. And then I want you to find 2 articles. One article specifically from this database, ABI Inform Collection, which is one database within the ProQuest platform. And then a second article, a different article from Business Source Premier, which is a database specific to business, and a very commonly used one, which is within the EBSCO platform. So this is another thing I want you to be aware of, is there's a difference between a database and a platform. So some people will say, oh, I use the ProQuest database. ProQuest is a platform, so that it contains tons of databases, and actually CSUB doesn't even subscribe to all of them. Same with EBSCOhost or EBSCO. The EBSCO or EBSCOhost platform contains or publishes or sponsors, promote or hosts a bunch of different individual databases, but EBSCO or EBSCOhost is a platform. So the one specific database I want you to use from EBSCO is Business Source Premier. So if you click on these, they'll open up a login page for our library's login to this. And anyway, I've already logged in, so I can't show you what that looks like. If you have any problems with these links, let me know. However, you can also find these databases within our library's homepage. So there are ways that you can find them that way. And that would be an entirely different video. But if you have any questions about that or you want me to walk you through doing that, I will absolutely do that for you. So anyway, you're going to find one article in here. You're going to find a second article from here. And with each of those articles, you will cite them. And they will also have something to do, obviously, they'll have something to do with this information. Both of the articles have to address this information, but they also have to be published within the last 5 years, and they should be scholarly and peer-reviewed. Okay. So this is going to look like an annotated bibliography selection, or actually it's going to look like 2 selections. In week 2, you had the APA references assignment, and that would be just one selection, maybe from an annotated bibliography. An annotated bibliography would be like a bibliography list with an annotation paragraph or 2 underneath each source. So first you have the source reference in APA format as it would look on a references page, right? And then beneath that source reference, you have whatever I'm asking for. So in this case, I want 2 paragraphs under each of the sources. I want one paragraph that summarizes the general information in the article. I want this to be totally in your own words. Do not copy any wording from the article or from the article's abstract. So and an abstract, if you all you can find is an abstract of an article anyway, you can't use it. You have to be able to find the full text of the article. The second paragraph is going to tell me about your experience in doing this. So keep a little journal or notepad next to you and start writing down, like, what search terms did you use? What worked? What were too broad? And how did you narrow them down? And pick a particular aspect of any of these categories or sections or terminology or whatever that can help you have a reasonable search. You don't want 5,000 results. You don't want to have to sift through that many, because how many sources came up, right? How did you filter those so that you could narrow it down to something that was digestible? And then how many of those are even relevant? And isn't it funny how you can use the same search terms and get 50% of the sources that are matches are not even relevant to what you're actually asking for? So how did you filter them? And take notes of these things. And your second paragraph will explain this to me, so if you're taking notes while you're doing your research, then you'll remind yourself and you'll have something to write about as well. And then you're going to put those together. So you're going to have a source reference with 2 paragraphs underneath it, then another source reference for a new article, right? The second article with 2 paragraphs underneath it. One article is going to come from ProQuest. One article is going to come from EBSCOhost, from these specific databases within those platforms. So far, got me? Okay, so when you click on those links and you come into those searches, there's a ProQuest search. This is this particular database within ProQuest, but no matter, hopefully, probably you've used a ProQuest database before. It's laid out very much the same way. It's just that the publications or the journals that are published in this particular database have to do with business. So I want you to be familiar with this one and comfortable with it. In EBSCOhost, you probably used an EBSCOhost search before. This particular database is just Business Source Premier, which is a very, very popular business journal, and business database. And the journals in it are all going to be pertaining to the business world, and studies about it or tips about it. It could be trade journals, whatever might be within this database, but they all have to do with business. So you need to be familiar with specifically that database within the EBSCOhost platform. Okay, so for just an example, I'll give you some lame, broad terms, and I'm going to show you how to filter those results. So let's just say we were going to just do something general like business communication, just to see what comes up, and international. And then we're like, okay, yeah, because we want to do a advanced search, not a simple search. A basic search or simple search would just be one term or one phrase or one word. But we want to combine them with these Boolean operators. So we want something that has to do with business communication and somehow is international. So if we search that and then we get our results, we have 4,633 results. That's way too many. So let's say we go, okay, first off, I'm lazy and I don't want to have to hunt down my articles. I want to know we have it. We have access to it. And it'll tell you whether or not we have access to it. It'll say PDF full text, that means that is it, click it, or HTML full text, we have the full text, or it'll say check for full text. We might just have access to this listing, but not to the article, but we might have it. I don't know. I'm too lazy. I don't want to go that far. So I don't want to click around. I'm just going to limit this to only the ones that we actually have full text, because I don't even want to like something and then find out I can't find it. They also need to be scholarly or peer-reviewed, right? So that'll narrow it down. So now by doing that, I've got 996. Still with me? But I also told you they need to be published within the last 5 years. So let's change this to 2015. So now these will be all within the last 5 years. We still have 247. That's kind of a lot. So if you want, search through those. But here are some other ways to narrow it down. We could say, okay, we only want certain subjects. So let's look at our subjects. If we only wanted to deal with communication, or maybe you only want to deal with ones that are written in English, that doesn't narrow it down much. But we could say, okay, only ones that are about communication strategies. So then that narrows it down to 5. Well, 5 is too few, but let's just look at this. I want to point out a couple of other things. One thing is a DOI. Sometimes within the reference information here, this is not an APA format, by the way, there's a DOI listed, and DOIs are amazing. After about 2012, the year 2012, articles, almost all articles have a DOI, good scholarly journals, right? articles from scholarly journals. This is a digital object identifier. No matter where this particular article is published, this DOI will always be the same. It is unique to this particular article. So having a DOI is better than knowing which database. I know that you're using this database, or I'm telling you to use this database, but even if this one was published in 4 different databases, and maybe even within Google Scholar or something, you could find this one without even having a subscription to a database. This article will always be associated with this particular DOI every single time in every single database. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so as we're going through those, pay attention and look for the DOI. Sometimes they're not listed, and sometimes you can find them anyway. Sometimes you might have to search for them a bit, or you could Google, just in a generic Google search for the article title, and you'll come upon a DOI somehow else. Also, sometimes you'll see it in the, I told you, if you have the option between HTML or PDF, pick the PDF. I don't know if I told you or not. If I didn't, pick the PDF format, because the PDF is exactly how it looks in the publication printed. So the publication information will all be up in here to give you the information for your referencing, so you can reference it properly. But also in the PDF format, you know where each page begins and ends. So in APA, when you're quoting something, if you have a direct quote, you need to also note the page number where that quote was found. In MLA, which we're not using in this class, MLA wants you to cite a page number for every single thing, even if you paraphrase. But in APA wants that page number if you have a direct quote. So it is very important to know what page numbers we're looking at. And in an HTML version, if you have the HTML full text or the PDF full text, pick PDF, because with HTML, it just basically looks like a big web page with a whole bunch of words, and you just scroll, but you don't know where any page starts and stops. So this is much better. Also, within the PDF version, you can usually see the DOI printed in there somewhere, so that helps too. Okay, so here's this. I don't know that this particular article has anything to do with what I want. Maybe it's kind of lame. I don't know. If I cruise down here, this one's managing difficult workplace conversations. And I actually looked at this one already once before. So I already know what it's about. It's basically about ways to motivate your employees. And then when you come upon these situations where you have to give bad news, how do you tailor that bad news to a subordinate, or how do you address those difficult conversations? From what I kind of perused, it's not totally about international correspondence per se, kind of hints on the cultural responses, but not really. So maybe this doesn't even actually address what I was kind of looking for, because this is really, really, really a generic search. I probably used terms that were way too broad. So if I take out some of these, let me see, some of my descriptors, let me get rid of like my subject limiters and stuff like that, and even the English thing, and I go back, or maybe I want to search again with fewer filters. Let me do like international communication. These are also bad terms, because I want you to find something better than this. And let's say I want to do like slang, just to see slang, idioms, figures of speech, jargon, or sometimes the same kind of thing. Okay, so I might have too many subjects in here. Let me see what comes up. Nothing still. Okay, maybe we don't like the word slang. Let's try idiom. Let's see what comes up. If I use idiom instead, or even we could do idioms, it's still saying nothing. So apparently that's a bad search too. So maybe we want to do, shoot, I don't know. Let me say if I got rid of those, would anything come up at all? Yes, one thing. And this doesn't have anything to do with business. So maybe somehow or another we need a term that has something to do with business, maybe something that says international, something that says communication. You can use multiple terms and add a line. You can add a line this way and search 5 different terms together. Try it and tell me how it works. Do you get fewer results? Do you get more results? Do you get better results? So do that, find something on a topic that fits with those sections of the text that we were talking about, with one of the sections. You just pick something, right? Or some maybe piece of advice that they gave you within there, and find an article that supports that within the last 5 years. ProQuest, same thing. It's very similar. We could do the same crappy search terms that I used before that are too broad. Do business communication and international, just to see. And remember, keep a little scratch pad next to you where you're noting what search terms did you use, how many results did you get, how did that work? Well, look at this one. I got 2,515,000 results. Okay, that's obviously, we're not even, come on. So these are also from 1855 to today, right? So let's get rid of some of this and go up to, let's update my date range a little bit just by doing that. Let's go just the same way, like 15 to 20, 2015 to 2020. Actually, it's going all the way to 2029, to where we haven't even got yet. But we still have 1 million records. So we only want the scholarly journals, because we definitely don't want to deal with dissertations, abstracts, and everything else. We don't want to deal with magazines. And yeah, we just want journals. And then we want them to be full text because we're too lazy to find more. So now we got it down to 68,000, and we only want peer-reviewed, because something can be scholarly but not necessarily peer-reviewed. So now that's got us down to 64,000. So that's good. That's still too many. And then let's go, okay, what's the document type? So we'll go to articles. That article, that's still 60,000. Subject, we can narrow that down to, what kinds of subjects are they talking about here? Maybe we want to do communication. So in this one, in ProQuest, you can include certain subjects and exclude other subjects. So if we're like, okay, we definitely aren't talking about competition. Or maybe we are, maybe we do want to talk about that. Or maybe we want to talk about customer service and perceptions and maybe social responsibility. You can do whatever you want. Just make notes of what is working and what is not. Now we've got it down to 7,000 results. Here again, we can look at location. Maybe we only want to look at the studies that were done in the United States. So now that'll wipe out a few. So, but maybe some of the studies that are done in the other countries will show you their perceptions of the international communication in it with an English-speaking audience if English isn't their home language, a native language of that particular country. So those actually might be more interesting. Maybe we don't want to narrow it down to just the United States. Anyway, then once you get kind of a reasonable amount, like a few hundred, you can start looking at the titles and the examples that were in there. But again, I had an international, International is one of my search terms. So even if it's not in these little descriptors or these little lines of examples from the article, it might be in the title. So if the title is, has business or has international in it, it's the title of the journal, it'll come up as a match, even if the article is not really talking about international correspondence. But actually, this looks like there are lots. So I'm not telling you that these are good search terms. I'm saying play with a variety. I think the more specific you are, the better it's going to look. Okay, so there's that. Find one that actually works for this. Go for the PDF. Oh, in EBSCOhost, you're going to see in your results list, often you're going to see the DOI listed there. In ProQuest, you might not. That doesn't mean it's not, that it doesn't have one. It just means that they don't always put it up in here. In fact, maybe you hardly ever do. So let's say if we can get the full text or full text PDF, that we want full text PDF, right? And then maybe on the front page or on some page or another of it, it'll list the DOI. If it doesn't, if you can't ever find it, you can't find it. That's fine. But one of the like quick and dirty tips that students often hear is go to the little cite button. I'm not seeing a DOI here, but that doesn't mean there isn't one. I could probably Google search communication and social media approaches in small business and find one. But anyway, here there's a cite button. And if you click on that, it'll tell you which way. Well, we don't want AMA, we want APA, right? 6th edition. And it'll give you how it's cited. Be careful, because this isn't always perfect. It's inputted by a human being, and sometimes they make mistakes. This part has to do with the article itself, right? This second part, though, has to do with the retrieval information from my particular search, which isn't really going to help you because that's all my ID, account ID, my search stuff. We don't really care about that. We really just care what database it came from. But like I said, if you can find the DOI, then you don't have to worry about what database it came from. But double check these because they're not always right. They don't always capitalize right. They have some kind of issues sometimes. This one, same thing. If you click on the actual source, oh wait, let me pick a different one because this one isn't. Let me go back in my searches. Okay, if I was to take this one, say, this article, use of English language, business, and finance terms in European languages. There's a button on this side that it looks like a piece of paper, but it says cite if you mouse over it, and this one will show you how to cite it. But again, this is not always perfect. So here, so here's the people's names. And yeah, John actually is his last name. So that part's right. The date's right. The title, though, is wrong. So in APA, in an article title, you only capitalize the first word and proper nouns. The first word of a title and subtitle, if there is one, and then proper nouns like English, European, but the rest of them would be in lowercase. So you need to know that and follow the directions in the handouts that I provided you. And then the rest of this is fine. This stuff, you don't necessarily need any of this. You can just put DOI : and then this is your DOI. And a DOI almost always starts with 10 point something / blah, 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 blah. Maybe letters, numbers, a combination. It may be part of an article's author's name, or maybe an acronym of the journal that is published in. It just kind of depends. Everybody has their own little DOIs. But you'll see this number is exactly the same as this number here. This is the number for this article. But you don't need all this part right here, that. Cut that out. Just put DOI : and then the DOI, and then double check these things. So I'm not opposed to using the little site helper outer, but it's not perfect. So be really careful. And then what other things do I need to tell you about? If I think of anything else, I'll give you a supplemental. But if I've skipped anything, if I've spoken too fast, if you had any questions about this, if I'm assuming that you understand something you don't, please let me know, because yeah, so same thing. So then, yeah, and if you can't find a DOI, but it looks like it should have one, you can let me know and I'll look for one for you. And otherwise I'll be looking for one for you anyway. So you might as well ask me before it's due. If you think of anything else, hit me up, call me, email, text me. If I spoke too fast, let me know. Otherwise, hopefully all of this makes sense. You're going to save it as one document. After you write a paragraph summarizing the article and a paragraph explaining your search, you got an APA source reference above it, and then another one for the second one. You're going to put it in a Word document, submit it as an attachment for this particular assignment, and then you're going to also submit it as a Word document to Turnitin.com in the appropriate place. If you have questions about doing that, let me know. I think that's it. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what you come up with and what terms you used and what worked for you and what didn't. All right. Thank you.